Good afternoon, everyone. This is Aarhus. You might be wondering why I talk like I do. I actually come from Cumbria, but I've been living in Denmark for 30 years, so some people say I sound like Peter Schmeichel. Last year we were nominated to be European City of the Year by the Academy of Urbanism, and we made this presentation for the committee. We had I made a few pictures here from the visit. It was fantastic for us to actually have the opportunity to address certain issues and discussions in relationship to the questionnaire. Actually, you can see one of these guys is quite good at climbing. But I showed many of the places in Aarhus which I'm going to talk about today. But it's all about these people here, the actual people who are working in the city, in the different areas. Why is it called the City of Smiles? I've got to tell you a little story. That's where Aarhus is. Copenhagen is here, Malmö here, and Germany is down here. And this boundary is something to do with 1864. He's probably watching at the moment. We spent over 1 million kroner asking a branding company to come up with some ideas about how we should promote Aarhus. And they said, well, Aarhus, that's Danish for progress. And we tried that for 2 years, and no one really understood it. So we went back to this one, where the City of Smiles. And we like this concept. But I would actually like to talk about why we use this City of Smiles. Some of you may be familiar with this guy, Colin Powell. He's written a book called If Mayors Ruled the World, and I think he's made a partnership with the mayor from Bristol and a number of mayors from around the world. And our mayor from Aarhus has become a part of this movement. He talks about empowering local government rather than national government. He says that there's very little trust in relationship to the governing body. More people have more trust in their local government. And for example, Aarhus, or Denmark, is the nation in the world which has the most trustworthiness in relationship to its politicians. 86% of the population believe in their governing body. Whereas if you compare with South America, there's 3%. But all the Scandinavian countries are in the top 5. I got on the plane coming over here yesterday, and this book was one of the pamphlets you can pick up in the airport, A Wealth of Trust. And this book has been written by a professor in Aarhus called Gert Tinggaard Svensson, who talks about trust, and it's all documented. And the reason why we, for example, as a nation, have a great deal of interest in looking after each other. Now, there's an article in this month's Academy of Urbanism booklet where I'm interviewed about this, if you want to follow up on it. But the city itself is in an incredible transformation. We have a vision from going from this city to this city and to this. And we're in the middle of this process. Our mayor, Jakob Bundsgaard, is a captain in this. I'll come back to that in a minute. There's a reason for it. But he would very much like to have been here today, but he's actually opening the Sculptures by the Sea, which is a biennale every 2 years. And the prince and the princess are there with him, so he has to open it with them. So he would like to have been here, but he couldn't. But we're talking about how can we change the mindset, and that's been mentioned a lot today. And one of the things is that we're talking about citizen participation and engagement. And it's at all levels of society, all age groups. And we're working with this mindset where in 2017 we'll become the European capital of Europe, the cultural capital of Europe, and we're using this as a mindset changer. I'm going to talk about these themes: governance, the mindset, livability, trying to rediscover and reinvent our DNA in Aarhus, the walkability of a city, engagement, co-creation, and the reconnecting, as well as the city as an urban lab, and of course, whilst we wait, and people. If you go back to the other picture, I covered it up here. But This is our town mayor. He's in his late 30s. And he was at the opening. Every year our university in Aarhus is, there's 40,000 students, and it's the top 100 university in the world. And it's number 15 in relationship to the most beautiful campuses in the world. It's designed by C.F. Muller. But every year there's about 20,000 students meet up to celebrate people swimming across this lake, this pond. And he was captain that year. He's also a very active runner, and this last weekend we had the colour run in Gellerup, which is the ghetto of Aarhus. And this is Jakob, our town mayor. This is the previous town mayor. He's now the Ministry of Defence. And this is his wife. But we had a great day. I ran there. I took this picture. It was good fun. But he's very engaged in the city. Now that's me, and this is my alderman in the technical department of the city. And I'm trying to encourage this thing about design and architecture. Danish for progress became Danish for proportion. And this was my moment, 15 minutes in the local newspaper. I became famous. But when on a more serious note, when we talk about the city, we're investigating methods of actually being able to control and discuss the way we develop our city. And livability and sustainability, of course, core to what we do. And all these layers are becoming layers in which we talk about the quality of our city, how we're developing it. So it's not a kind of a box ticking exercise. It's trying to encourage this focus upon how can we make this city a very good place for everyone. Now the city's growing like mad. There's 4,000, one of the points that Jakob, the mayor, has discussed a lot is this thing about, which is inspired by Professor Michael Parkinson. He met him last year in Manchester. How can we create this business region? And these second-tier cities, as which we are, we're also in the Nordic City Network, which is another second-tier city organization. Within an hour of Aarhus, there's 1.2 million people. So the 11 councils have gone together to become this business region. We're standing a lot stronger now. We can actually talk about forcing a new motorway system or try to encourage different policy making coming through. But there is one lady here, you see. Men in suits. But we've been growing with 4,000 to 5,000 people every year for the last decade, and it's pressurizing us. The demographics of the city is very interesting. Out of the 300,000 people in Aarhus, there's over 50,000 of them are students, and they leave after the age of 29. So we would like to have a much more balanced city, and we're trying to encourage people to stay in Aarhus after they've finished their education. But the city's growing like mad, and the urban sprawl, as this map indicates, is growing incredibly, and we're concerned about going into this Atlanta compared with Barcelona. So this is the model we're focusing upon. So when we do work in new settlements outside the city, rather like the city planner from Birmingham yesterday, and this is quite interesting, is that we're facing the same challenges as Birmingham, but on a slightly different scale. But they're really serious. We have to develop new city districts outside of the city to take on the 4,000 or 5,000 people each year. We're also talking about densification of the city, where we talk about making new districts, sustainable housing, of course, and how we can talk about densification within the city itself. This is a bone of contention with our local citizens. Do we go high? Or how high can we go? How dense can we do it? And when we're working in terms of heritage, how can we integrate new architecture into the old? But these are two strategies: new towns in designated areas, and these 36 brownfield sites which have been transformed. Now, one of the cornerstones of our policy is engagement. How do we reach out? When we do have meetings with the citizens, it's nearly always the same usual suspects. So we're trying to develop new ways of meeting so that we can develop co-creation, these in Danish, so we can get closer contact with the local community. We have an architecture policy, and citizen participation is a very important one. This is a debate meeting just last week where we're talking about a new district of the city. The architects are there. We've asked them to come with 3-4 different proposals which they have to be challenged and discussed with this local population. This is my older man, very actively engaged in this discussion. We're talking about business, a district here in the town. A great evening. And of course, multidisciplinary design. It's not just the architects. There's working with many different layers, sociologists, landscape architects, of course, and urbanists, and also the local citizens. And this is the group from last year visiting us at Institute for X, Cultural District in Aarhus, where we find it very important that we have this opportunity to discuss across the different areas and in different cities. Now, of course, this thing about European City of the Year, I'll come on to this in more detail, but one of the important things about our city at the moment is I'm asking people to, we have to reinvent or relook at where we are. We have these beautiful environments as a walkable city. Within 10 minutes you can walk from the centre here out to this forest here. You can cycle here 10 minutes into the forest here. But we also have Denmark's largest industrial harbour, container harbour. 66% of all containers come through at Denmark, Aarhus as a harbour. So there's sometimes a conflict between that, and this is the, what do you call it, the Sculptures by the Sea event, which is taking place as we speak. There's 500,000 people come here during 1 month just to look at this, work with this. It's a fantastic event. But how do we make this work? The old heritage with the new. One of the important things is our hinterland. This is the lake carrying into the river, into the town. It's a very important part of our heritage, our existence. We're the second oldest city in the world, in Aarhus. And this river has become a focal point. It used to look like this. Then it looked like that. This is back in the 80s. And when the politicians and the city architect at the time discussed about making something like this, everyone was up in arms. They just couldn't imagine how it could be. But now it's become an incredible place and created incredible value, not just economically, but also socially and environmentally. This is just a summer's afternoon, or even a lunch. It's very popular. Lots of people here at all times of the year. And the whole river has been transformed by this shared space. And this is just growing and new activities coming along all the time as time develops. Of course, it's the side where the sun is. Small terraces next to the river. This is looking the other way, these small terraces. But I think this is a good spirit. I think it's a very nice atmosphere. People are very happy and content here. Next to this, the river, we have this area here, a completely different group of people as well. There's, when we talk about a good city for all, this is an area where youngsters who are unemployed or punks, different types of characters, which do not sit in the same place I showed earlier, but this is their domain. This area is transformed every month into a market. It's a brilliant place. But what I thought about, I took this picture and I just thought, these small kids, the parents are over here, there's another bunch here. There's a very nice sense of security here in the public domain. Sport is a melting pot. And as well, just a table tennis table just brings people together. But when we talk about healthy and sports activities, we're trying to reinvent this river by using it in lots of different ways. There's a cinema, there's a fountain of water, casting a film onto it. A canoe bridge, this is a bridge at a high level, so it becomes some kind of activity. But this healthy city is also the sports rambler we're talking about. How do we develop this area? One of the disadvantages of being a coastal city is that we get tendency to be, we could get flooded. We've been very closely, this is the river of course, but we're really on the edge of being flooded here. So we've had to take heed and develop a strategy here whilst we've been developing Dock 1, the multimedia centre, which is opening here on the 20th of June. A whole series of elements have been developed here. The coastline has been lifted 2.5 meters above the sea level, so it can take care of the 100-year, challenge of the 100-year flooding. So this whole area has been completely transformed. We're nearly finished. Right out and Aarhus, the island here, which is the old container harbour, has been transformed now. This area has been lifted to 3.7 meters over the sea, and it's become one of our most beautiful city areas as a promenade. Lots of people are using it now as a public space. But one of the advantages of this area is that we've actually, by making this coastal safeness, we've actually developed a new biodiversity where oysters and mussels are growing, and there's a growing interest for that. One of the problems we've had was that the harbour front used to look like this back in the 80s and through to the 2000. It's all been changed now. We've had a master plan developed for this whole area, the harbour front, and we've been working to how can we connect the old Viking centre with the bay and the harbour here again. So all the buildings have been removed, and we've planned these two major projects as a kind of polarities on north and south of this old axis here for the old cathedral. And these have nearly finished. This is finished now. This is finishing as we speak. And it's an amazing transformation. We call it it's a hinge between the old river and the new harbour. And it's the largest library of its type in the north of Europe. It's cost 2 billion krona. There's 1,000 parking spaces underneath. The new light railway line has its own station here, and there's over 1,000 cycle parking in it. But it's going to be quite amazing. This is the Navitas building, the other end. The university has this. The public space out to the sea area here. It's been beautifully made. Also works at night. And next to that, this office building, a new headquarters for bestsellers. But this is our mayor, and this is my previous older woman. She's got married to the son of A.P. Müller, the big shipping magnate. So she's retired now. And the funny thing about this is that 2 weeks before we chose this letter here, we changed this from the A with a circle on top because you can't use it on the internet. So we got two A's, and then we got this. You can't use that on the internet either. But we thought it was funny at the time. But this whole area of the Aarhus harbour front is a really important one because we're building a city for 8,000 people on the old container harbour. But we were to make it a diverse society. So 25% of all the housing has to be affordable. We have to have a lot of different functions, offices, shops, and so on and so forth. Most of this area is being developed as we speak. You may have seen this, the Iceberg project by SIBA, voted the best housing project in 2013. But whilst we wait for the other projects to be finished, we're giving the opportunity for urban gardening and lots of other activities. When we talk about making new possibilities for meeting, last year it started with 80 members. This year it's over 180. You can rent 2 of these and make your own vegetables. But it's not just a question of doing gardening, it's a question about meeting people. People coming from all over Aarhus. It's a melting pot. Similarly, we made this beach bar, which has just been moved to another position because we're going to build here. But this is becoming an incredibly popular event. There's over 1,000 people come down here when it's sunny. This area here I'm going to talk about. This is the Dome of Visions, which is a temporary project which we used to have the opportunity to talk about the city in a different way rather than sitting up in the town hall. But this area is being transformed. We've had to readdress the area out here because the scale's wrong. It's got the Ørsted in Copenhagen scale. This is 1.5 kilometers long axis where the light rail will come, but the spaces in between are not working. We're readdressing what type of city do you want to live in? And this is an important issue because we've been going through different phases, and this is one that we're looking at this moment. The whole area has been challenged. We want to look about the functionality of different functions, looking at the scale, which types of housing we want to work with, the carré structure, the block, and also the tower. And this is Big's take on what Aarhus's DNA is, the townhouse, the courtyard buildings, and the tower. And when you get this guy, Bjark, and this guy, Rune Kilden, who's the developer, together, this is a party, things happen. So, together with Jan Gale as well, by the way, they developed this strategy where they're talking about edge zones, lighting, the microclimate, which is not working at the moment, looking at our city, taking parts from our city and reinventing them, using them at other places so it's legible. We're also in the process of building the new Danish Salesport Centre. But all these activities have been redeveloped and reinvented in relationship to our streets. Completely new typologies, but inspired from places all over the world. You see pictures from Vancouver, Amsterdam, London, all sorts. But this is the image we're working towards. The beach bar will be moved here. These 8 containers will be reused here. It's going to be they're starting to build this now. The whole city is being reconnected by a light railway line, because as we know, the mobility thing is really important. Now, we have a growth industry here in cycling. It's become it's just growing and growing and growing. We've got major problems with cycle parking. We're building a bridge for the light railway line, but we've also built onto the bridge a cycle path. This is a 2-kilometre long bridge across a valley, and that's a very expensive bridge. But it's all part of our super motorway for cyclists as part of our park and ride strategy. So you could either take the light railway lane or cycle, both ways, of course. Gellerup, 110 hectares. It's the same. Look at this area in the city itself. 7,000 people live here. We're talking about transforming all this. A lot of community engagement. We're removing blocks. It's completely transformed. And we're talking about what type of quarters, squares, and neighbourhoods we would like to work with. And I've used this Patrick Abercrombie image to help explain how we understand our city. This is something I'm working on at the moment with the people in the districts, and we can transfer this knowledge into this new city planning. One of the things that's become very interesting is we think of certain districts as one, but there's actually lots of small sub-districts within the different districts. So this is something we're looking at in this area. What type of streets do we want to make? These are the questions we're addressing at the moment. This is from Holland, Amsterdam. I like this a lot because of this, the children out here playing. There's still cars out on the roads. Finishing off here. Sorry. I didn't see any signs, okay? But these are the issues, and we're working with 3 architects about what type of character these quarters or neighborhoods or villages they should have. But it's for these guys, these little rascals. So we're actually also working with digital methods for trying to get people involved in becoming participants in the planning of the city. Also these guys, for example, because of them, we've also developed this strategy for making an instant city, because over 50% of those 7,000 people are actually under the age of 18. So we have to make places for these guys. Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry, it took a bit longer.